20 years later, after everything that's happened, the lesson still works. So do all the tools. Not because life got easier. That's definitely not true. I've told you that this entire month. And not because grief stopped showing up. And it wasn't because fear, sadness, resistance, or old memories never creep in. They always do. That's human. But what I've learned over the last 20 years is that the lesson from Heart Lessons was never about avoiding hard things. It was about learning how to listen, how to respond, how to stay the course, how to grieve, how to forgive, and how to keep following your heart even when life doesn't follow the plan I thought that I was going to have. This month has been really interesting. Recording these July videos and writing the blogs and revisiting the story of my heart failure opened up a lot more emotion than I expected. I don't do a review every year. I haven't touched the book or even really thought about my heart problem in many years. I mean, yeah, I got the pacemaker and it sits right here and it's there every time I look at myself in a mirror, but it doesn't define me. It doesn't identify me. It's a lesson that I learned. I wasn't reliving it while I was going over it. I was revisiting it, and that is a huge difference. But revisiting it still has a way of touching old places, doesn't it? It seemed to pick at a few scabs of grief. Not enough to reopen anything, but just enough to remind me that healing does not mean that nothing ever hurts again. Healing means that I have tools now, and I use them. This month, I found myself going back to the same tools I teach. I made decisions. I stayed determined. I worked on my attitude. I used heart math. I took Kismet for walks and listened to my badass soundtrack so I could set the tone for the day instead of letting old thoughts set it for me. I challenged the automatic negative thoughts when they showed up. That's cognitive behavioral therapy. I used the tools I know from CBT. I used what I learned through neuroscience about creating new pathways and not letting the old ones become the only road available. And when I needed to shift my emotional state, I went back to one of the most reliable tools I know. I started writing. I started creating. I started refreshing things that mattered to me. So, behind the scenes this month, I've also been working on refreshing Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day, which I'll be sharing more about in August, but I want to show you the new covers. See, Heart Lessons led to Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day, and these are the new covers. So they're in season. I'll share more about them later. I'm just sort of giving you a preview here. Yeah. See, Heart Lessons led to Apple a Day. Apple a Day led to License to Be Badass. License to Be Badass became a framework for the tools I use and teach. And now I'm creating merchandise for License to Be Badass because it's part of the bigger message. It's like, doesn't this just emit positive attitude, courage, resilience, confidence, staying the course, setting the tone? None of that replaces Heart Lessons. It proves the lesson kept growing. So if I could go back 20 years ago to the woman who was keeping a journal during her heart failure, and then eventually, several years later, wrote Heart Lessons, I don't think I would change the lesson. I might tell her she has no idea how much more life would ask her to carry. I might tell her there would be more grief, more change, more endings, more beginnings, more moments when she'd have to decide again whether she was going to follow her heart or go back to performing life that no longer suits her. But I would not change the lesson. Follow your heart, stay the course, use the tools. Let the work become part of the healing. And when the old thoughts creep in, when grief brushes against the edges, when fear tries to take over the microphone, remember this. You're not starting over. You're practicing. And that, my friend, is pretty badass. Next month, I'll be telling you a little bit more about Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day and Licensed to Be Badass, as this first book in the Radio and Records Cafe trilogy series will be handed off to my editor, and I won't have anything to do with it for, I don't know, the 30 days that he's going to have it or whatever it is. Meanwhile, I have started on Perry's story. I'm Kelly Orchard. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate the comments that I'm getting from you, whether it's about my message or about my hair. I love it. And then please keep them coming because I'm doing this for you. Well, I'm doing it for me too, but mostly for you. I just want to teach you what I have learned along the way. And I really would love to get you to be certified badass. We need more of those in the world, don't we? If you enjoyed this conversation, I'd appreciate if you'd like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might enjoy it too. And if you'd like to go deeper, I invite you to join me in the courtyard on Substack. That's where I share the writing journey behind the Radio and Records Cafe trilogy, along with reflections on creativity, leadership, resilience, travel, and the stories that shape our lives. You'll find the link below, and I'd love to have you join us there.